Let's get to the New York Jets, our preview for the 2025 New York Jets. Their offseason in 60 seconds. Hired Aaron Glenn as their head coach. Tanner Angstrom as their offensive coordinator. Steve Wilkes as their defensive coordinator. Chris Harris is their DB's coach and defensive passing game coordinator. Scott Turner is their passing coordinator on offense. Signed Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed. Extended Garrett Wilson, 4 years, $130 million, $90 guaranteed. Sauce Gardner, 4 years, $120 million, $85 guaranteed. Jamie Sherwood back, 3 years, $45 million, $30 guaranteed. Brandon Stevens is in free agency as the cornerback, 3 years, $36 million, $23 guaranteed. Signed Andre Sisco's safety, 1 year, $8.5 million. Also brought in Josh Reynolds, Isaiah Oliver, and Josh Myers in free agency. Lost Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, DJ Reed, Javon Kinlaw, Hassan Reddick, and Morgan Moses in free agency. Drafted Armand Membu in the first round at offensive tackle, tight end Mason Taylor in the second round, cornerback Azare Thomas in the third round, your boy Derrik, wide receiver Arian Smith in the fourth round, and safety Malachi Moore also in the fourth round. Derrik, what are you most excited about in watching the 2025 New York Jets?
Just Aaron Glenn's version of what this Jets defense is going to look like. Because I've spent a lot of last year, I think, and a lot of this offseason saying that, like, there's still reason to be excited about the Jets defense. Like, I think the roster has atrophied a little bit, but, like, you still have theoretically one of the best corners in the NFL. You have Quinnen Williams, who is a monster when he's playing well. Quincy Williams, who is playing well. Behind him, Jimmy and Sherwood at the other linebacker spot. Like, they have these. Will McDonald has been an ascending star at the pass rusher spot. So, like, they have a lot of dudes that, if the defense gets turned around a little bit, and again, they played well early last year when Saleh was there. I really trust Glenn, not only as a defensive coach, like, I've spoken a number of times of what I thought about him as a secondary coach when he was with the Saints. He obviously showed some of that with getting a lot of the young guys to play really well in Detroit. But then even just cobbling together what he did last year with Detroit, given they had like a zillion injuries, was phenomenal. And for him to, I think, come into this roster, hopefully a little bit healthier than that for the rest of the year. Again, I don't know if they're going to be that 2023 Jets defense, but like if they are the 11th best defense and look like a really solid unit again, I'm not going to be that surprised, and I'm pretty excited to see it.
I'll be curious what it looks like structurally. Like, are we? I assume we're going to see a load of man coverage. Like, that's just
It's
what
Aaron
Glenn does,
Yeah.
And so I assume we'll see that. How aggressive they are with the pressure is something I'm going to be watching. Like, Steve Wilkes has in his past shown a willingness to really bring it and turn up the heat. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. That's not really what the DNA of this Jets defense looked like under the previous regime, even if they did some interesting stuff with those like 5-0 looks on passing downs where they had those overload fronts and they had some creative ideas, but this was never like a heavy pressure team. That's never how they wanted to live. So where they fall there is interesting to me. But if you look at the man coverage success that this team had, they played a ton of man coverage on third down under Robert Saleh, and they were really good at it. Like in 2023, the only defense that had a better man coverage success rate per next gen stats than the New York Jets was the Cleveland Browns. They were fantastic. And so unleashing this group, especially the corners, like I see it. Brandon Stevens is such a fascinating pet project for Aaron Glenn specifically. Like, I think he is such a good, him and Andre Sisco, like them as, okay, we think that these guys are, free agents are always available for a reason. And I think you get there with both Stevens and Sisco. It was a down year for Sisco last year in a nightmarish situation with the Jags. And Brandon Stevens is somebody, he's like Luis Mendoza and Mighty Ducks 2. Like, he's the fastest skater in the world, but can't stop. Like, that's Brandon Stevens. He's the best coverage corner in the league that never turns his head around when the ball is coming. And so you see it with these guys. Like, they're imperfect players. And if Aaron Glenn can work the same sort of magic with this group that he did developing some of those guys in Detroit, and they can be that sort of like man coverage team, I am excited about what the end version of that could look like, Dave.
Especially with actually having, well, hopefully, I think a more effective than it would get credit for pass rush. And obviously that's going to hinge on Jermaine Johnson coming back healthy after his promising season. It's going to hinge on Will McDonald continuing the success that we saw last year. You're going to want a little bit more from Quinnen Williams, but if those three guys are firing, that is a hell of a way to start for Aaron Glenn. And you can do a lot of that stuff. Like, you can get away with playing the way you want to play if nobody in the pocket has trust that they can hold on to the football. So it's one of those weird things where sometimes you're just willing to give a unit a mulligan, you know, like you want to dive into all this next level analysis and come up with the reason why the Jets weren't that good on defense last year. But sometimes you're just like, it's a weird sport. These are good players. Aaron Glenn's a good coach. Steve Wilkes is a good coach. Like, I'm pretty optimistic that this could be much better results, even though I don't have a lot of numbers to point to why that might be the case. But I think it's a totally realistic hope.
This is not scientific whatsoever, but one of the most impressive things in the world to me about the Robert Saleh era of the Jets is how high the give it factor was on defense, as everything else was horrendous.
They were the
And
best defense
eventually,
in the league with Zach Wilson playing quarterback on the other end.
it's so hard to do that because defense is so based on how much you're willing to put into it. And the fact that they did it for so long, I think them white knuckling it for like 2 straight seasons, eventually that thing was going to drive off a cliff if those conditions were continuing. And I think that's what the back half of last season felt like. And so those guys that we felt like were true ascending star level players, the Sauce Gardners of the world, Quinnen Williams, if they play like star level players, what can this defense feel like? And I think it can be better than preseason expectations, projections would lead you to believe. Dave, what are you most excited about with the 2025 Jets?
This is one of those times where I do wish in specific ways that the NFL was a little bit more like college. Obviously, the NFL is way too good to get away with this, but I look at what the Jets are doing this year, and I just wish they could call Paul Johnson and install the triple option and just like play the wishbone, because it looks like they're equipped to do that. Like, you add a quarterback who's capable of rushing for 600, 1,100 yards in a season. You just drafted these badass tackles. The Jets offensive line should be pretty good if those young guys live up to their draft billing. You got a great 1-2 punch of running backs, Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. I would love to see this team run the triple option. It would probably not work because the NFL is harder than that, but like, I want to see them get goofy with it and lean into the run game. Obviously, there's ways you can do that while still running an NFL offense. I think Justin Fields needs to be a big part of it, but the weapons and the capital that you bring to the run game should make it fun to watch. And yeah, great defense, running game, like, what's not to love? Smash mouth football.
We ran a flex bone offense in high school, my junior year.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's what I want to see here. I want to see like mid 2000s Air Force football where you
Yes.
have one fullback, quote unquote, that is your like lined up behind the quarterback, halfback, and then you have 2 like flex bone wing backs, and that's how you construct your running game. I want Braylon Allen to be the hammer, and I want
Yep.
Breece Hall and Isaiah Davis lined up like flexed off the line of scrimmage, and let's go to town. That is the best version of this Jets offense.
That's what
Service
I was gonna
Academy
say,
football.
like, they have 3 backs to do it. Like, Breece Hall is really explosive when he's playing well. Braylon Allen, I think, is way smoother than anyone his size has, like, any business being. He's not the best, like, breakaway guy, but his feet are phenomenal for a guy his size. And then Isaiah Davis is, like, I think a majority of teams in the NFL would be happy if he was their second back, and he is the third back for the New York Jets. So, like, they've got a stable of guys on top of a quarterback who can run, and then on top of also, like, Armand Membu, man. Him and some of what him and Tucker were doing in the run game, getting some double teams in the preseason, insane. Like, they just look awesome.
And those 2 guys next to each other, and Joe Tippmann is like a big physical player. Josh Simpson can move people, and I'm excited about what Fashanu can be. Like, every time we do this with young offensive lines, there's a little part of me that's like, I want to see it first. Like, it's just because you threw a lot of investments into it doesn't mean it's going to work. But I am excited about what this group can potentially be. Let's get to the swing points for the 2025 New York Jets, the areas where this season could potentially pivot for this Jets team. Dave, why don't you kick us off?
So we just mentioned them, and we talked about them in regard to the run game, but in general, it's just really exciting when you spend this type of capital on 2 offensive tackles in back-to-back years. Like, it's the same thing. Pittsburgh did the same thing with Broderick Jones and Troy Fatanu. You draft Olu Fashanu 11th one year, you draft Armand Membu 7th the next year. And as high as those guys go, like, you're one of the first 1 or 2 tackles off the board, the expectations are so fun. And so I think the swing point is just how good are those guys? How quickly do they gel into a formidable tackle duo? And if it's quickly, that's so cool. I mean, obviously it helps in the run game. it would help a quarterback like Justin Fields, who is going to hold on to the ball, who's probably going to try to make plays after the 3.5 second clock goes off. And when you've got guys like that, it can open things up for you. So I'm not trying to sell anybody on the Jets as an elite offense this year, but if those guys are really good, it could have really big ramifications in all aspects of the offense.
Yeah, those two are like, if this is pie in the sky, but if they're like the 8th best tackle duo in the league and they look really good in pass protection, like that's the thing with Justin Fields is I think there are ways that this can work out, but Justin Fields is going to be late and he is going to hold on to the ball. But if him being late and holding on to the ball is he has an avenue to escape 3.5 seconds into the play as opposed to he is getting smacked, like that is going to make a big difference. And obviously it's not going to happen every time when you have two young offensive tackles, but if that can work out for them more than it did last year, then I think they could be in a relatively decent spot given what we're expecting.
My best case scenario for Justin Fields, still at this point, I think it's kind of morphed into this because of what he's been as a player. He's robotic in the pocket. He's not moving. He's not moving particularly quickly. Like that's just not his game. We talked about this, Derrik. He's not a creative player from the pocket, despite being an overwhelming athlete. The best version of Justin Fields in the NFL is like dime store Jalen Hurts. Like that is what he is. And Jalen Hurts' success has been driven in part by the pass protection he gets on the Eagles. His limitations and how quickly he is playing matter less because of how good the pass protection is in Philadelphia. And I don't think Justin Fields has the strengths that Jalen Hurts has relatively, but I think the path forward for him can look somewhat similar, and that starts with this group being a really, really good pass protecting group right away, because that has never been part of teams that Justin Fields has played on. It was not the case in Chicago. And then last year in Pittsburgh, Broderick Jones, especially early in the season, was really struggling in pass protection. So I think even if Armand Membu was like a B+, this is already going to be the best pass protecting unit Justin Fields has ever played with in the NFL.
Yeah, like I know for a while I was a Justin Fields defender. The ship has absolutely sailed on him being like a good NFL quarterback, but I am genuinely interested to see what it looks like for the first time in his life getting pass protection that felt like Ohio State. That I'm just curious to see what it looks like.
It's so bleak to think that this is the best pass protection he'll have ever played behind a second-year tackle and a rookie, but it's true. It's definitely true. It's just bleak.
It should be. That's what I'm willing to say in the third week of August.
For as much as I love these guys.
Fashanu, I have a lot of hope that he can be good, and I really like what I've already seen from Armand Membu in the preseason, and I loved him as a prospect. It should be the best pass protection he's ever gotten. I'm not willing to write that. I'm not willing to write that in pen quite yet. What is keeping us up at night about the 2025 New York Jets? Derrik, why don't you kick us off here? What is keeping you up at night about this team?
The Jets have one definitively good pass catcher who to me is a wide receiver too in an ideal world. That's not a great way to build a passing offense. And I know we just talked about how much of like, this is probably going to be a team that is going to be like top 5 in run rate this year. They want to build it through the ground, all that stuff. That's great. In the NFL, you're still going to throw like 400 times a year. Like at the end of the day, you still have to throw it a decent amount. And if the only guy that you can rely on to do any of that is Garrett Wilson, who is good. He's really explosive. He has really good ball skills. He is also like a little bit of one of those like herky-jerky route runners. He can be in weird spots on routes sometimes, which I think particularly for Justin Fields, even though they played together in college, I do think at the NFL level is like a little bit of a icky combination to me that I'm kind of curious to see how it works out. So to me, it's just last year they felt a little bit incomplete and they still feel pretty incomplete.
Outside from wide receivers or just pass catchers, 2 through 6, is there a worse team in the NFL coming into the season than the Jets?
I mean, probably not.
I struggle to think of it if it's out there.
I mean, Washington pre-Debo may have been in that conversation,
Maybe,
but
yeah.
Debo is now in Washington. I don't know who else would even come to mind. This is a rough situation. Like we're
the next team we're going to preview could have something to say about that. Maybe.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the right answer. The New England Patriots are in the conversation.
Because I almost said Cleveland, but it's like David Njoku's pretty good. He's better than what we're going to get here. Like,
even Hunter Henry is a better pass guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens with Mason Taylor, but we're talking about a second-round rookie tight end.
Hunter
least we
Henry
know
is the fly
Henry
in the
is
ointment there.
fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. At least we know he's competent.
That's how I struggle with this team is that, again, if we're going back to the Jalen Hurts thing, Jalen Hurts has the Monstars as his pass catching group. Justin Fields is not walking through that door with that sort of group here. It's Jalen Hurts or it's Garrett Wilson and not a lot of other things that we feel good about. And so I just, it's hard not to look at that group and have really limited expectations for this team. Because as much as we want them to be a service academy run game, and as much as I do think they can lean on that, that sounds great. Like, that sounds great in August. Like, oh, we're just going to ground and pound and we're going to grind teams down. It's like, this is the NFL. Like, eventually your quarterback is going to have to make like 6 to 8 plays a game for you to be worth the and I just don't know what that's going to look like with a quarterback that has Justin Fields' spotty history and a pass catching group that has Garrett Wilson and not much else to rely on.
And that's why I'm really happy that the Jets paid Garrett Wilson and paid him well, by the way. Like, they paid him a top 5 contract. And at least he's got that in his pocket, literally, because what I lose sleep about is Garrett Wilson potentially being Terry McLaurin. And when he's about to turn 30, the Jets finally find a quarterback. I hope that doesn't happen because he's so fun. But that's the trajectory that he's on right now, where he's 7 years into the league before he finds out what reliable quarterback play looks like.
I'd be curious to talk to people with the Jets about the contract they gave Justin Fields. I mean, it's not a small deal. Like, it's $30 million guaranteed. It's a 2-year, $40 million deal. And I do think that the last couple contracts that were handed out, that these like 1-year salvage the quarterback type of approaches, like with Sam Darnold, it's like, all right, well, we salvaged the quarterback and now he's gone. Like, what are we going to do? And so it feels like they're protecting themselves a little bit by doing it this way. But he has a $23 million cap hit next year and it's $22 million in dead money. So you're going to pay him $30 million over the next 2 years, no matter what. So you are insulating yourself just in case he hits and you want to roll with this again next season, but you are paying a premium to do it. It's not free.
It's not free, but also, like, to me, it doesn't, like, if they suck and get the 4th pick, they can still take whoever, and it doesn't, you don't feel that bad about it.
I think that's exactly right. There is some opportunity cost for it, but it's not so prohibitive that it might be worth protecting yourself a little bit. I assume that was part of the thought process. What's keeping me up at night is not nearly as problematic at 9:20 p.m. when we're recording this as it was at 6 p.m. when I was doing my notes, because this team traded for Harrison Phillips today. My issue with this team outside of the pass catchers when I was looking at the roster is the interior defensive line next to Quinnen Williams, because it was rough before they made that trade for Harrison Phillips. We're talking about Byron Cowart, Jay Tufele, and Derrik Nnadi. Apparently Leonard Taylor, who is a college free agent 2024, has had a decent camp, but like, that's what we were doing with the other interior guys. It's like, I don't know, Leonard Taylor's looks pretty good. So having like a functional body in Harrison Phillips now to play next to Quinnen Williams makes me feel better about this group, because I was genuinely concerned about the state of that interior offense or interior defensive line.
You're going to sleep just fine, buddy.
That's right. Listen, I'm never sleeping that well this time of year, but I am going to sleep a little bit easier about the Jets after making that trade. And, it's not they didn't give up much to do it. And I think this is a Vikings team that's trying to save a little bit of money based on the amount of money that they've spent in free agency. It's a crowded room there because of the guys that Minnesota signed. So I think it's a smart thing. Like, Darren Moogie calling a team that has a little bit of a glut there just because they were in a rough spot. I support this. They traded for Jawan Briggs from the Browns earlier today, also as defensive line depth, but based on their recent history, I think I feel a little bit better about Harrison Phillips than I do about Jawan Briggs.
Yeah, I don't care about a Browns defensive tackle, sorry. But I do. This is like the best kind of trade that you can make in August. Like, it's like they filled. You're not leveraging that much to go do it, and you fill what is, other than receiver, pretty clearly the biggest spot on your roster that needed a little bit of help. And like, for as much as I love their backers, they are more run and hit and find the running back type of guys in space, and they are not necessarily the take on. Quincy Williams can do a little bit of it, but they are not the biggest guys, and so having Harrison Phillips to help them there, I think, could go a long way.
Let's get to what we're watching in the first month of the season with the New York Jets. Derrik, why don't you kick us off? What are you watching in the first month of the year?
Well, we've joked a little bit about what the Jets offense is going to be. They have all these running backs. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be a service academy offense. But I think that really is a genuine question of like, what is the Jets offense supposed to look like? Because with Tanner Engstrand, he comes from the Lions, and The difference in the two quarterbacks could not be any wider. Jared Goff does a lot of things well. The two things he does not do are move outside of the pocket and throw a go ball. He does not do either of those things very well. The only two things I'm pretty sure Justin Fields can do right now are run and move outside of the pocket and throw a go ball. So I just like how they construct the offense around those two widely different skill sets is pretty fascinating to me. Obviously, I think there will be some overlap with the run game, especially some of their under center stuff. But like the passing game, it could be worlds apart. And I just have no idea about like what that's like, going to actually look like.
My assumption is we're borrowing very heavily from the play action elements of the Detroit Lions passing game, and not necessarily the like ripped balls over the middle play action elements, but just having play action be a foundational part of what this passing game looks like. If you look at Tanner Angstron's history, it's actually kind of interesting. Like, so he started his coaching career in 2005 as like a QC for the San Diego Toreros when Jim Harbaugh was there.
I thought
And
you were going
so
to say the Chargers.
so he actually started his career with Jim Harbaugh and then spent a ton of time at San Diego over like a, almost like a decade long period. And so in his bones, he's kind of like a Jim Harbaugh guy. And then in 2020, he was a QC coach, I believe, for the Fresno State football team when Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb were there. And this was during the COVID season. And like 4 games into the year, he got hired by the Detroit Lions as like one of their QC coaches and then was retained by Dan Campbell. And so his background is like as a Harbaugh guy, and then he was the passing game coordinator for the Lions. And so I think a lot of like what he believes in his bones about football is kind of drilled into what that Jim Harbaugh stuff looks like. And so run game, play action, like that's who we're going to be. I do think that is going to be, those will be the defining traits of like what the New York Jets offense looks like this year. That is my guess.
That's music to my ears, honestly.
And that kind of tracks. Like a lot of what Justin Fields should be good at is a lot of like the older Greg Roman type stuff. Like when I think about like what Colin Kaepernick had been for them, even some of the stuff that like Roman was doing in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor, like a lot of that stuff actually does track. So that's interesting.
And then their offensive line coach, it was the tight ends coach for the Lions last year. And obviously the tight ends coach is involved in like how you construct the running game. And so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of carryover and hopefully the diversity of that running game. And because that's the special sauce for what the Lions can do is that their offensive line is so good, they can run anything they want. Like it's an incredibly diverse run game. A lot of outside zone, like that is the foundation of it, but they can get to whatever. And you'd hope in the best case scenario here, Derrik, with this offensive line, we have a similar sort of feel to what the Jets running game is.
I really hope so, because I mean, we already talked about the passing game. They need the run game to open everything up. It's going to be a lot more flood than a lot of those dig routes than the Lions, that's for sure.
Whatever the offense is, Dave, they have a very tough early season slate. We're going to find out a lot about this New York Jets offense very quickly over the first month of the season.
It was beautiful when I heard y'all wanted to talk about Tanner Engstrand because this all sounds good. The theory of what they could be or what they want to do, it sounds great in August. They need to have it. They don't need to have it figured out, but they need to be ready for the start of this season because September is Pittsburgh, Buffalo, at Tampa, at Miami. And I think that's such a fun gauntlet of different types of good defense. Like you've got your Steelers who have your overwhelming edge in TJ Watt that a rookie Armand Mimbu is going to have to deal with, by the way. You got the Bills. We just did a whole thing about how the Bills have been good for so long. Then you got Todd Bowles and all the crazy that he likes to do. And Anthony Weaver down in Miami, who is a great piece of this modern coaching tree, this new school of defense with the disguises and the sim pressures and all that good stuff. So Tanner Engstrand and Justin Fields both are going to get the kitchen sink thrown at them in the first month of the season. So I hope you're ready for it, both of y'all.
Let's get to what counts as a successful season for the New York Jets. In your mind, what is success for Aaron Glenn's first year, Dave?
Derrik and I have actually talked about this on previous shows, and like we're both just kind of intrigued and excited by the Jets, which that's a start, by the way. Just being like thinking the Jets are fun is a great start. That would be a great place to start for the New York Jets. Is they were bad and a bummer for the most of the last like 4 years, and especially during the Aaron Rodgers catastrophe. Like you can be bad, you can be a bummer. You shouldn't be both. And that's what the Jets were. So just Aaron Glenn getting here and doing a restart with some exciting young players and hopefully getting the most out of the established players on defense. It's just nice to think that the Jets are a fun, intriguing team again. And if Glenn can get the defense back to like great status, like if they breathe fire again the way they did a couple years ago, that would be icing on the cake.
Yeah, I don't think the wins and losses are what matters here. I think this is about how we're feeling about this team by the end of the season. Like, if we can just restore the vibes in Florham Park from what they have felt like, and we get proof of concept for who this team is trying to be, right? If the run game is a version of it that is akin to what they want, let me do that whole thing again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If we get proof of concept in the things this team is trying to be, the run game, the physicality and intensity on defense, the young players flash, Fashanu, Membu, Mason Taylor, Malachi Moore. If that's what this team feels like by the end, and we're like, man, the Jets play a certain way. Like, you feel this team when you play the Jets, even if there are limitations and imperfections about the personnel in certain key areas. That to me feels like a win, even if it's a 6-11 season.
Be the 6-11 or 7-10 team that everybody loves. If the defense is hitting and playing really well again, if the offense is not good but a headache to deal with, and then we all come out of it at the end feeling good about whatever Aaron Glenn is doing in terms of putting guys together or just making sure that his game management is all very good. If they are the team that have a scrappy 7-10 season, and then by the end, or by this time next year, we're picking them as like the sneaky 11-win team that we all want to do, like how we think about like the Cardinals and teams like that. That to me is success for a Jets team in year one.
Thanks for watching the Athletic Football Show. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with us. Like and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time.